We're very happy and honored to have Danny Ferry join us from Atlanta in his home. One of the most celebrated players for Coach Wootten. A sad day. I know you knew this was coming, but still, your thoughts off the bat.
Well, I just feel very fortunate to have him as part of my life, have him as a coach. He was an incredible coach, great coach, and an even better person that was lived a selfless life, and we're all lucky, especially people in the DC area, because he made basketball better in the DC area, but certainly the the DaMatha family, to have been a part of his world.
All of the, I guess, basketball hoop heads and everybody around the district especially knows of his history. If you were speaking to someone who'd never met him and was trying to distill the magic of Morgan Wootten, what would you say, Danny? What was his hallmark?
His hallmark was he was competitive, and he was a high integrity person. But I think anyone, whether you played him in a game of golf, you usually lost on before the first tee, or in a basketball game, whatever it was. He was competitive. He was high integrity. I think one of the big words in his life is priorities and living your priorities. He certainly did that by staying at DeMatha. He certainly did that every day with his faith and his family. And then I also think innovative. He added so much to basketball. He added so much to the DC area, from the Capital Classic to television show, high school coach with a television and radio show, to shoe company situation 40 years ago for a high school, which was unheard of, to basketball stuff, the charge and how they had to change the rules in basketball because of what he did, fast break. I think diversity inclusion at a time where maybe it wasn't so popular.
Well, I was going to say the whole notion of welcoming African American players into a school that at the time, a lot of private schools, that wasn't what they did. That was pretty much original thought on his behalf.
Well, I just think he felt it was something that was right. And going back to the days of Sid Catlett and that era, those guys were with Coach, stepping into something they didn't know what it was going to be like and how it would go, and it ended up to be a great relationship, a great situation. I think great for the DC area. In the '60s, when there was really an open door to a cracked door to be able to do stuff like that. DeMatha and Coach Wootten were one of the people in basketball, one of the people in the DC area that helped shove it open.
He was someone also that I believe was responsible for not just the inauguration of summer camp basketball, which everybody's got one now, but also the McDonald's High School All-American game. Can you talk about that? Because you played in that.
I played in the McDonald's All-American game, and Capital Classic is something he and Bob Gagan kind of came up with that brainstorm, and worked with McDonald's as a partner to really turn it into something special that also did a lot in the community with the Ronald McDonald houses especially. And then the camps. I can't tell you how many people has gone to his camp and how many people's lives he touched that weren't part of the DaMatha. Heard a story that someone ran into Justin Thoreau about a week ago. A year ago, the actor, and he's like, "Yeah, I went to Morgan Wooten's camp. Yeah, I know Danny Ferry. He was my coach." I'm like, "Oh my God," but we were.
You coached Justin Thoreau so well that he went into acting.
Yes, he went into acting, he had that camp with Joe Gallagher, who was a great mentor of his at St. John's, and it was a great thing for a lot of people, especially the kids at DeMatha and St. John's, because we got to work the camp. We worked the camp together. We were coaching. We were referees. It just taught us so much at a young age, and put us in a great position to be successful going forward.
He was at ease in any social situation. Didn't matter if it was the It didn't matter if it was somebody's home that he was recruiting and he hoped would come to DaMatha that had nothing, or it didn't matter if he was a CEO of a large corporation like McDonald's. Can you share the story of him and Ray Kroc?
Yeah, a good friend of mine helped Coach with his money, and they were Coach Wootten with his money, and they were organizing his estate and so on. And I have some McDonald's stock, and he went into a drawer and pulled out some McDonald's stock, uh, and my friend said, "Where'd you get that from?" He goes, "Ray Kroc gave it to me." He goes, "He handed it to you?" He goes, "Yeah, he handed it to me. It was a bunch of pieces of paper with stock on it." So, I mean, I met President Reagan with Coach Wootten when I was National Player of the Year in high school. And, again, any circle, he had an eclectic group of friends. He didn't matter, what they did or who they were didn't matter as much to him as what kind of person they were. And he found everyone interesting and great. And, again, he lived an unbelievable life. He's a model for us all. I don't know it's one that we could all live up to, but he sure was a special man.
You obviously went to Duke on a basketball scholarship, and your brother went to Harvard. Even if you couldn't play basketball, I get the sense that his ability to be a great educator outside of basketball meant a lot.
Well, first of all, there were guys on my team that weren't National Player of the Year or could play at Harvard or Duke, and he helped them just as much as he helped me. We talked about that. I talked about that with a couple friends today. He was unbelievably generous, and everyone that he was working with was extremely important to him. He was my brother went to Harvard. I went to Duke. We both had Morgan Wootten for history class, and we will both tell you in the classroom he was the best teacher that we ever had, no matter where we were. He was an incredible teacher. He loved it. He could tell stories. He could relate to people. He could relate to current events. He had a level of accountability in his classroom that was real. Never raising his voice, never cursing, whether that's on the court or anywhere. I mean, the poise that he had was just unbelievable.
That's what I was going to say. It's almost a bygone era. When you say Morgan Wootten, you sort of think, okay, he didn't have the largest stature, but he had to be a Calipari type figure, or he had to be a Riley type figure to get the most out of his players. And it sounded like he didn't need any of that. He was Morgan Wootten.
He was honest, and he cared. And when he told you something, he told you in a way that you listened. And there were people that yelled and cursed, and there were people that made us, jump up and down and are very flamboyant when they're on the sidelines or in practice. That was never Coach. He was the epitome of poise. He was the epitome of a teacher. And again, I can't tell you how lucky I was to have him in my life. I've played for other great coaches, and Coach K and Popovich, Lenny Wilkins. They were all incredible, and none of them were better than Coach Wootten.
I feel like Grant Hill once told me, he said, I wish I was born in another era when all the AAU stuff wasn't a cattle call, and that high school championships were still important, and that playing for your high school was like the biggest thing in the world, bigger than winning an AAU summer tournament in Las Vegas. I feel like we lost part of a bygone era of prep basketball today, not just a person.
I'm a little older than Grant, so I lived in the era where, the city title game and our conference, the Catholic School Conference in D.C., the city title game, going up to Alhambra, those tournaments, they were bigger than anything we did. We did play some AAU. We played summer league for our school, which they still do, but there was nothing more important than the DaMatha jersey for us. And, obviously it's changed to some degree. It'd be great if it got back and the schools became more and more important, because you can have a level of accountability there that's probably stronger. And it's just more rich. You're playing with the guys you're going to class all day. It's again, the era that I played, I'm a few years older than Grant. I was fortunate enough to play over a time where, that DeMatha St. John's game, for example, was the biggest thing. Going over and playing Gonzaga, going to play Spingarn with Sherman Douglas. Those were the biggest events of all of our year, and it was the best.
And finally, you last spoke to him, I think it was 6 weeks ago. You wanted to keep that conversation private. A lot of people talked about David Stern yesterday at his memorial service, and they used the word love. I imagine that's what a lot of Morgan Wooten's players feel for him today. That it wouldn't be so much farther beyond basketball.
His health had not been good, and he had been kind of gone into a kind of a private mode. My father was the last one that spoke to him, and he had a great conversation with him, and they became dear friends over the years. Certainly, one of the things that in talking to some of my fellow teammates, the word love is absolutely in everyone's mind right now. We love the man. We love him as a coach, and he was a friend and a mentor and a teacher and everything. And it's a great sad day to reflect on, and we'll have the next several days to do it and time together about how lucky we were, and just what a great and wonderful person and coach that he was. Great family man too. He's got a wonderful family. He really does.
Thanks, Danny. I say for everybody that it was an honor to play for him. I think a lot of people that ever picked up a basketball would have loved it. And I think you'll always be able to say you played for the great Morgan Wootten.
Wow, I'll be able to say that, and I'll be proud. And he was incredible. Thank you so much, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Danny. That was awesome. Thank you, sir. It really means a lot.
You got it, Mike. Take care, buddy. Bye.